most of you out there probably to some extent have Civil 3D or the AEC collection. And one of the things I want to try to do is get across some of the ideas of connected workflows, but specifically with Civil 3D. And I say specifically with Civil 3D because of the fact that if you're doing any design, whether it's site, transportation, Civil 3D addresses all of those things. The beauty of working with Civil 3D is that within the AEC collection, you want to be able to take advantage of a lot of those applications that comes with that AEC collection. So there's probably 12 to 15 applications that you probably could use connected workflows with Civil 3D. And what I am going to try and do is go through some of them as we kind of talk about connected workflows with Civil 3D. So this PowerPoint is just kind of to give you a feel of some of the things we're going to talk about today, and clearly why connected workflows. So that way you won't have to go out and purchase extra software applications when you probably could utilize the ones you have, whether it was from hydrology to transportation to site development to even map and map data. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about today is the Civil 3D 18.1 update, the Infoworks 18.2 update, and then the kind of workflows with Civil 3D. And then again, most of you probably have the AEC collection, and from that you have Civil 3D, vehicle tracking, Infoworks, Revit, 3ds Max, Map 3D, raster design, hydroflow, storm and sanitary analysis, river analysis, also parts editor and inventor. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, at least 12 products on this list that you have from the AEC collection. And I'm just gonna kind of go through some of those, but really, I'm not gonna focus on a lot of what's new in terms of Civil 3D. I'm just gonna kind of blow through some of these slides in reference to what you can do with the integration with Civil 3D and Infoworks. And most of the time spent will be with the actual products. So collaboration updates, integration with Civil 3D is a big key. And then the design efficiencies, there's some new functionality with feature lines and how they relate to surface modeling relative to a surface and things like that, relative and absolute for feature lines. And then also creating offset profiles with alignments in Civil 3D, geometric roadway elements that are specifically more efficient and more dynamic, and then also baselines with corridor. So we're going to go through some of those things. Everyone has probably ran into the idea of corner bow ties and things like that, but we're going to move on. And then there's been also some plan and production enhancements in terms of plan and profile in terms of creating sheets for your plan production sheets. And then also clearly Infoworks and Civil 3D being able to pull a model from the concept of the infrastructure project from Infoworks into Civil 3D. And we'll try to get beyond that also. And then vehicle tracking, which allows you to do swept path analysis, accurately predict movements of steer vehicles, and also perform real-time analysis. So we'll get into some of those things. And then clearly, what was at one point the infrastructure design suite premium and the building design suite have been kind of collaborated together to give you all of those products. And we'll take a look at some of those. And then if you have questions, by all means, this is almost an open forum. And at the end, any question I will address in terms of collaborating with the AEC collection. And then roadway geometrics, and then roundabouts and real-time analysis and 3D modeling and animation can be done with Civil 3D and vehicle tracking. And then there's some roundabout standards, new parking lot, and then improvements with pressure pipes and gravity networks. Okay, and then also Travis editor and adjustments that we can utilize from Civil 3D. And then within Infoworks, one of the big things is being able to extract features from point clouds, calculating quantities, design bridges and things like that in new ways, and road design. So we'll take a quick look at some of those things. So as I kind of blow across this, it's just working with point clouds. But from that, we're gonna do some real work in reference to the actual product. So no big deal. If you haven't seen Infoworks, it'll be a good start. But one of the critical things is to be able to go and download this new 18.2 version of Infoworks. And then also from Civil 3D 2018, there's a parts editor. And the parts editor, the beauty of working with that in terms of drainage catalog, pipe fittings, and then also being able to kind of manufacture your own structures and pipes within this parts editor. So it goes to the point of Pipe Builder and Civil 3D, which they're moving away from, and the new parts editor addresses all those things. The beauty of working with parts editor is you can actually create those parts and structures in Inventor and work with Plant 3D and pull that catalog straight into Civil 3D. So it's just some real nice flexibility in terms of working with other products. And again, going on to your manage.autodesk.com, you can download the latest enhancements in reference to that. And then by the end of the session, you should have seen the AEC collection, concept through design for a road, working with different data, Esri, GIS, MicroStation, point cloud, also Revit, and some GIS functionality that some people may have not run into with Civil 3D. Okay, so we'll get to those questions a little bit later. So as of right now, I'm just going to jump to Infoworks. So again, one of the things I want to be able to do is with Infoworks, you can go anywhere in basically the world and grab road data, topo data, and also building data. So one of the things that I've kind of went in and did to save time was I've created a model. So if I go into Model Builder, basically what this allows me to do is create a concept and proposal of any civil infrastructure project that I may want to kind of create to try to get approval for. Again, I can zoom anywhere basically in the world and grab data. So I can define the area up to 200 square kilometers of the model that I want to build. Within that model, we're going to get road data from OpenStreetMaps, highway and rail, building data from OpenStreetMaps, and then aerial imagery from Bing Maps, and then also elevation data from USGS in terms of 10-meter. And you can also bring in your own survey data if you wanted to. So I have created a model. So something really simple. I've created this model in Arkansas, Fayetteville, Arkansas. So it opens up a model, and as you can see, I have a large amount of models, as you can see. Hoover Dam, Hartsfield Atlanta Airport, and then some other different road designs. So again, here's the model that's been built. We clearly can see that there is aerial photography. We clearly can see that there is topo data. From this topo data, we also see that we have roads. If I hold my cursor, it's showing me my West Barton Boulevard. So from OpenStreetMaps, so the data has been brought in, and typically for a site of this magnitude, I'm talking maybe 9 minutes to build this model once you send it up. So I'm gonna turn this model north, and just to bring in a few things. So one of the things that I want to make reference, because we're talking about connected workflows. And again, ultimately, we want to be able to pull this data, which is from a concept, into Civil 3D. And here you can clearly see that there's some kind of roundabout and roads that they were trying to propose at some point. And one of the things I want to be able to do is kind of put a boulevard in there to kind of address that. So the first thing, if I go to my one tool, I'm going to select this data sources. With the data sources, I have the ability to bring in different file formats. So whether it's a 3D model, a Civil 3D drawing, an AutoCAD drawing, a 2D overlay as an AutoCAD drawing, an Autodesk IMX file, an Autodesk Revit file, CityGML, a DGN model from MicroStation, an IFC model, LandXML. Clearly, LandXML comes from a variety of external metafile language file formats that you can pull in. A point cloud, a raster, an SDF spatial data format, a shapefile from Esri, or a SQLite database, and last but not least, a SketchUp model. So as an example, all I want to be able to do is down here at the bottom, because I've done a few things to kind of address for time, we have this area. So what I want to bring in is I want to bring in this LandXML file, just to kind of give you a feel for the tools that you can pull in. So I'll bring in this pipes. So I'll just drag and drop it right into my screen. It's a LandXML file. It's telling me what the source is. It's giving me a coordinate system, which the coordinate system from Infoworks comes from longitude, latitude, LL84. And you can put your own coordinate system in here if you wanted to. So from that, if I select close and refresh, it shows me a pipes that's generating over here. So from that, if I just move my cursor up, you can see that it's brought in those pipes. Now, where did I get those pipes from? Well, you can get those pipes from Civil 3D. You can get those pipes from Esri GIS. There's a lot of different places you can get a pipe network from. But clearly, Civil 3D, hydroflow, storm and sanitary analysis, and river analysis plays a role in terms of bringing in this data. So, and one of the beauties of working with Infoworks is I can go in and kind of, create different proposals. So I'm just going to call this prelim because I brought those pipes in. And then also I want to bring in some ponds. So I put in 2 ponds over here. So I just want to bring in 2 ponds. So I've created these ponds from Civil 3D, and just to get a feel for what your data from Civil 3D looks like in Infoworks. So here's my pond file. If I just pick on it, I can just drag and drop it right into the screen. And you will notice that it is a LandXML file with a coordinate system tied to it already. And just keep an eye on this area right here when I select close and refresh. That surface model from Civil 3D, which is a pond, now has been integrated into my actual surface model from Infoworks. So again, you can bring in your own surface data. So I've got kind of 2-tier pond there with an overspill going in, which is fine. And then I got, if we look at it, there's different views that I can create. So I'm on this conceptual view. If I select this pipes view, I can kind of display my model differently. So, I mean, as an engineer, maybe you don't want to see all that sky and data information. You want to see triangles and data. So here's that pipe network coming in and dumping into this pond. So something pretty straightforward. And I'll just come right back and change to my conceptual view. And I'm right back where I started. So a little bit of flexibility. So one of the things we also want to take a look at is at some point, we're trying to get this data from Infoworks into Civil 3D. The roll data that comes in, clearly you can see that these are splines. So it's just a spline in terms of roll data. But you can easily convert this to a design roll. And within a design roll, now I'm starting to make reference to AASHTO standards. So all my design rolls that I will lay out will be based upon AASHTO standards. The beauty of working with design rolls is now you have the ability to come in and specify what type of vehicle that you want to go through this intersection. So again, we have to think about what this brings to the table in terms of us in a realistic site. So for swept path analysis and things like that, because if I said I needed a WB62 truck to go through that intersection, it's gonna relay out my curve radiuses based upon that intersection. And I'll just come back and put maybe a SU30 truck, which is more specifically used in the specific commercial sites to bring in for delivery. And then we also can take a look at the idea of creating a roundabout. So it's saying, you know, I don't have enough geometry for the space for my roundabout for the arms and radii, which is perfect because now I don't have to waste a lot of time trying to figure out whether that will work. So we'll go back to that intersection. So something straightforward. And then what I want to be able to do is, because also within that AEC collection, we do have raster design. And one of the things I want to do with raster design is be able to pull in a TIFF or a PDF and pull it into this site, because sometimes, you know, we create a concept plan with a PDF in terms of a proposal of what we want it to look like. And we'll show how we can utilize that within Infoworks. So I did make reference to Revit, SketchUp, and 3D models. So what I want to be able to do here, right here as a quick example, because I think we have some room out here. I'm going to bring in this model. And if we take a look at the model, we can take a look at the model in 3D. So this model is of Minute Maid Park. So here's my model. And this is a SketchUp file. And I also have the ability to bring in a FBX file from 3ds Max. So I'll go ahead from this and I'll say I just want to interactively place this model. So it just drops right there on my cursor. And from this, I'm just going to double pick on it and select an actual model. So I'm going to say this is going to be my building. And I'm going to select close and refresh. And it says estimated time. And again, we have to consider, you know, the time that we're bringing these in. So we'll go ahead and close this real quick. So there's my model. So pretty straightforward, and kind of look at the detail that we have here for this model. And we have to think about what we're actually trying to get out of the model, which is going to be some visualization, maybe some animation. And there's my model. So, I mean, how do we look with that? So maybe we want to create some kind of parking lot in reference to, so we can do a coverage area. So from this coverage area, we can just say, if I scroll down, we'll just say, we'll just pick a little area and we'll say, we'll just come from here and we'll come up to here, no big deal. And we'll come out to here and we'll just kind of go along here. And we won't go and double pick right there. And there's my coverage area. So it only takes a couple seconds to kind of get across an idea of what we want to create. So now we can kind of throw some parking spaces and things like that in terms of what we want to be able to create. So I'm going to do some really quick things in terms of models that I'm building. And for all intents and purposes, I want to create a land area. So I want to create a land area that covers this basin right here. So something really quick in terms of a land area. I'm going to pick on it. And I'm going to pick from here. I'm just going to kind of get in between, pick here and here, just to kind of get it out of the way. So it shows me my square footage, because we talked about quantities and things like that. And if I go to my style palette, within my style palette, we have a grading feature. So within that grading feature, now I can just come and just drag this right on here and say, okay, I want this to be graded 3:1. And now you can see that now that has been graded 3:1. And if I pick on my analysis tab, I can say, I just want to do some terrain statistics real quick. So some really quick stuff, and then we're going to move on. Double pick. And it gives me my cut and fill volume for my 2D and 3D area. Okay, so some really quick stuff. And we'll move this palette out of the way, and we're just moving things around a little bit. We talked about also being able to pull in a SketchUp model or an FBX. So if I double pick on that, I'm just going to configure it really quick. So I'm going to go to building, 3D model, and then I'm going to select to interactively place. And just as a quick example, I'm just going to double pick right there just to pull it in, select close and refresh. So some really simple stuff. Okay, so again, whether it's a large scale or a small scale, I can bring in an actual model depending on whether it's a microstation, a Revit model, a DGN 3D model, or a shape or a raster, or even a SketchUp file. Okay, so we talked about this idea of raster design because you also get raster design. What I want to be able to do is I just want to grab this image. So from this image, I'm just going to drag and drop, and I can do a TIFF image or a PDF. So I'm just drag and drop this TIFF. With raster design, you also can give a TIFF or an image pulled down from Google or off the website. You can give it a world coordinate file that ties exactly into it. So here's my raster image, and then I just want to interactively place it. And we won't worry about that. We're going to start right back, and I'm going to pull up that image again. So I'll just start right back with Infoworks, and you will notice that I have multiple programs that I am running, which I am going to cut off a couple of these. So I just go right back. Infoworks is built on a SQLite. So when I just double pick right back on my model, it should take me right back to my place that I was at before that little error. So I'm just opening up my model, and this takes a couple seconds. So again, raster design, Esri, microstation, Revit model, SketchUp model. So it brings my model. So, you know, some people complain about crashing sometimes. I just open it right back up. Haven't lost this, haven't lost that pad, haven't lost that SketchUp model. So I'm still rocking and rolling. So again, if I go in from a PDF, you can create a TIFF image. So from this TIFF image, I can go ahead and interactively place. And here's my TIFF image, and it's a little big, but we're gonna address that. So I'll just double pick right there, and I'll select close and refresh. So some really quick things, because we've made it to the 1 o'clock hour, and we got a long way to go. So I'll just pick on it, and what I want to be able to do is I want to scale this down a little bit. So I'm just going to move this over, no big deal. Scale this down a little bit. Going to hit escape twice. Going to pick on that raster image again, and then I'm going to rotate it. And if I double pick, I can zoom to a specific place, or I can orbit freely. So if I pick on it again, I can rotate it. So I just want to rotate that. So something pretty simple. And then again, I'm gonna scale it down just a little bit more. And we're gonna move it over. So one of the beauties of working with the idea of raster is the idea that you can shrink wrap. So I'm just gonna rotate this just a little bit more to get it close to what that road is like. And then I'm just gonna zoom in on it. So when I pick on it, you can get a feel for and right click and say place by reference points. So when I select place by reference points, I'm just gonna zoom in on this and double pick this corner of this building, and it snaps to my actual image, and I'm just gonna double pick on this building. And then I'm gonna look for another reference point. So some really quick things that you can do. So I'm gonna zoom in up here. And I'm gonna pick on my other reference point. So I'm just gonna double pick here, and you can see I can move this over in terms of this, and double pick and hit enter. And just some really quick stuff that you can do with this TIFF image. So I'm just gonna zoom back out, and that's looking pretty good. So what I wanna be able to do, because I talked about design roads in terms of transportation, I want to create a simple component road. And for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to say it's going to be a 2-lane road. But if we look over here, we can see we have like a cross section here with a boulevard in here, but we're going to address that. But I just want to get across the idea of how simple it is to be able to address just a simple road. So we'll say 2 lanes, and we'll pick on this point, and we'll just kind of get it close, because we can move things around. And there's and you can see it's set for 70 miles an hour, but we can make that 40 miles an hour, and it changes my curve radius. So it's based upon ASHTO standards, and I'll just come straight through here, and I'll just pick this point, and I'm just gonna go a little bit quicker, and then I'm gonna come up, and I'm gonna double pick this point right here. So I'll make it simple. So, and then when I pick on my image, I can change the opacity of my image in terms of where it's at, and you can kind of see that I'm kind of really close in reference to this image. Okay, so really don't need that image anymore. I can remove, so I'm gonna remove that. I'll select yes. So I'll remove that image, and there's my road. So I went a little beyond, so I'm gonna just come back, and I'm just gonna pick that point right there. That gives me that intersection. And for all intents and purposes, I can right click and add data. Also can utilize drainage in terms of my road. Also can create a cross-section view and a profile view. So when I turn my screen up, just as an example, you can see it's got stationing. So it tells me specifically what stationing I have. So I'm just going to move that up a little bit. And if I right click on that, it's showing me actual curve in there. So I can create a few things here, and I'm just going to flip right back. And again, if I pick on it, I can drag over, no big deal. So we have the ability to grip edit and add in curve and other data. So one of the things I want to be able to do, just to kind of show you, is I'm going to zoom in on this. I'm just going to move this over just a little bit more here, just to kind of get a feel for where we're at on the site. And one of the things I want to be able to do is with component roles, we can see that I picked on that, and I can just go into my analysis and select profile view. So you have to think about what that takes with Civil 3D in terms of bringing that data in. So with Civil 3D, to create an existing ground profile, it's going to take some time. And I can come here and change what I want to be able to do in terms of adding PVIs and things like that. I'm removing PVIs just to get that above ground. I can come right here. I can add curve properties. So I can do a lot of flexibility in terms of working with my road design. So when I pick on this, one of the other beauties that you are able to utilize within Infoworks is you can select profile optimization, and it will do specifically, I'm going to close that, specifically, it's going to prompt me for my road design. So there's my road, and from that road, it grabs my design speed. If I tell it 40 miles an hour and it's a road component, I can tell it to optimize that road. And then on the advanced settings, I can tell it hold my PVIs. I can tell it specifically my drainage grade that's required, minimum PVI spacing. I can also put in quantities so it can give me the best optimization of the profile for my road design. So to be able to take that from concept into Civil 3D gives great value in terms of working with Infoworks. And I've done this already. So what I'm going to do is, one of the really simple things is when I pick on this, I can grab that and move that out just a little bit. And if I pick on it, if I pick on that road, just as an example, I can right click and say, I want to insert a road component. So this road component, I'm just going to add a grass median. And then if I zoom in, I can pick actually where I want the grass median. So I'm just going to do some really quick things, and then we're going to push this data to the Civil 3D. So there's my median, and then I can tell it, I want this to go all the way to the end of the road, and this one all the way to the end of the road. And again, it's just the beauty of being able to work with this kind of typical section to be able to add this data. So now I have my median in here. So if I right click again on my specific point, let's get that out of the way. You can see I got specific widths for my 2 lanes and also my median. So I'm going to hit escape twice. And then I'm going to pick on this one time and right click. And what I want to be able to do is I want to replace this assembly. And I've already got an assembly already kind of put in into my library. So I'll pick on this and I'll say, I want to go to the start of the road and to the end of the road. So some really quick things I want to be able to do with my assembly. So from that, again, we know we're trying to create this idea of this boulevard. So once that finishes up, We'll just close that. I'll hit escape twice. And we'll replace that again. And we'll just move it here. And we'll just stop it. And that's going to take a second. But what I want to be able to do is take that all the way to the start of the road and to the end of the road. In terms of that boulevard. And what we're going to do now is from that, just as a quick example, we're just going to jump right back to my preliminary. And I'm just going to move this out of the way here. We can see from our road, we have grading that we can select in terms of grading. So I'm going to close this and jump back to my other model just real quick. So in order to bring this data from Infoworks into Civil 3D, we're going to need to close our model. So from that, I'm going to jump right back to my home page. And from that model again, we can see as I scroll down, the different models that we're able to pull in. And I'll go right back. And I'm just going to pick on this one model before we move to Civil 3D. And in fact, it's 112. We will get the idea of what we're creating. So I'm just going to close that. No big deal. I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to jump to Civil 3D. So with Civil 3D, I've kind of have this typical section already built from my typical section from my TIFF. So with a boulevard with a depressed median with 2 lanes, a green space, and a sidewalk. So I'm just going to close that real quick and jump right back to here. So from that, if I zoom in, one of the things that we looked at earlier was this pipe network. Again, we're talking about connected workflows. If I jump to my pipe network, we can see that this pipe network can be utilized in storm and sanitary analysis or hydroflow. So when I pick on that junction and I right click and select start a profile plot, we can see that it's brought that pipe network in and it's dumping into my pond. And if I double pick on it, it's a pipe. And we have different hydrology methods that we can utilize in reference to SCSTR 20, TR55, EPA swim, XP swim, also rational, modify rational, and then HEC 1. Okay, so a lot of flexibility in terms of, again, everything that I'm utilizing, Civil 3D is the vertical application that works with everything. So, and then I'll just go ahead and close this. I got a lot of applications open. We also have the ability, and again, I just got my pond there to kind of show you how data can be moved into Civil 3D in terms of a surface. So right now, I just have a drawing here. So what I want to be able to do on my Insert tab, and one of the other things that we want to be aware of in terms of working with Civil 3D is this idea on the Home tab. For surfaces, we can bring in GIS data from a shapefile. And then also from, I'm going to open up my storm and sanitary analysis again real quick. If I go File, Import, there is also a GIS import that you can bring in from Esri in terms of pipes. that you can push straight into Civil 3D. So all that aggregated data and attributed data that you get from Esri, you can bring straight into storm and sanitary analysis, push it straight into Civil 3D as a pipe network. Okay. And we're just moving along here. So on the output tab, we also have the ability to export to HEC-RAS. So we definitely want to keep that in mind. So we talked about HEC-RAS and being able to push data. So floodplains, flood mapping, cross-sectional data, bridge scour, we can do all of that in terms of creating cross-sectional data with Civil 3D and a model from the surface with Civil 3D into HEC-RAS. Okay, so back to Infoworks. On my Insert tab, here's my land XML, and here's my storm file from HydroFlow, storm source. And then we have this Infoworks. We also have an Infoworks tab where we can launch Infoworks or we can open up a model. And if we go back to Insert, you can see here's that open up Infoworks model. From that, again, Infoworks has to be closed in reference to us bringing in that model. It prompts us for where our model is. And then from our connected workflows, which is that Infoworks model that we just had, I'm going to open that up. And what it looks for initially is the coordinate system to tie into Civil 3D and Infoworks. So as you can see, lat long 84 for state plains where you can, Arkansas 84 north. Okay, so, and then I can specify an area of interest, or I can use the whole extent. So if I specify an area of interest, I can select the area. And it says, do you want online mapping? So clearly this drawing has a coordinate system tied to it. So I'm just gonna select yes, just to get a feel for where I'm at. And it shows me by online mapping. So if I zoom in, I can just snap to this endpoint and this endpoint in terms of extents, even though I'm only going up to this point here. So I'm going to select that. So it reads from the model. And if I count it correctly, we'll see how many roads that I can quickly bring in. And if I have an intersection, it'll bring in that intersection from Infoworks. If I have a bridge model, it'll bring in that bridge from Infoworks. And then that data can be pushed into Revit or from Civil 3D into Revit. So we're going to open up our Infoworks model. And clearly this takes a second. And I am going to go ahead and close this. So here's it's read from the model. It's got my coordinate system. It has my sectional area in terms of interest. And then I can refine what data I want brought in. So what it does is it grabs the existing ground and the proposed road from the Infoworks model. And then it grabs all the roads. And if I look at it, if I scroll down, it grabs the roads with names and then also pipes and structures. So those pipes and structures from Infoworks into Civil 3D. So, and then design roads in terms of what is brought in. And then there's a couple intersections that it created. And then there was no roundabout. I'm not going to worry about water area. And then it did bring in a bridge. So we're going to deselect water area. And then West Venus, let's see. We're not going to bring in all of these. And specifically, I can bring in named roads and ones that I create on the fly. So we're not going to bring in them all. So that's all west. And for all intents and purposes, we want to bring in that one. And I think we're gonna be there after these. So west, south, north, and we can bring in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select OK. And then I'm gonna select open model. And then it says it's gonna bring in 348 entities from alignments to coverage areas to surfaces to bridges to intersections, and I didn't have a roundabout in there. So clearly you can see that it's brought in that data in terms of that concept plan that I utilized from Infoworks. So we're gonna cut this off real quick, and I'm gonna select map off. And then you can see it's brought in my topo. So we'll look at that topo, and we'll look at that topo, and you can see it's brought in those two ponds from that topo. It's brought in a coverage area. So just some really quick things you want to be able to bring in, and then our alignment for our road. So the beauty of that, being able to bring that in, also it's brought in a bridge and intersection up there. So this bridge, if I look at it, I'll right click and go to Object Viewer. This is an actual bridge that it created in Infoworks that brought it into Civil 3D. Same thing with intersections. It's going to bring in my alignment data and the alignments, and then it's brought in my surface, and then it's brought in my pipes from Infoworks. So again, going from concept to design. So we're talking about design. So I'm just going to pick on my alignment. So from that alignment, I'm going to select surface profile. And then you can see that it has several profiles in here from my profile list. But from that alignment, it's brought in all the alignments, it's brought in existing ground, and then it's brought in my profiles. So I'm going to draw that in a profile view. It's not a big deal. When you use major grids, it's going to be 8,000 feet. And then we're not going to show this pond. We don't need to look at that pond profile or that throat. We're just looking at the alignment of existing ground. And then from that existing ground, we're going to select the storm to bring in. And it says Infoworks network and the storm. So I have flexibility in terms of the data that I can bring in reference to whether it's Infoworks or Civil 3D. So then I'll go next, and then I'll go ahead and select next, no fill and cut area, and I'm going to select to bring in my profile. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Zoom right over here, put in my profile. So from this profile, now that it's brought in my profile, once this catches up, and what I think I did, I put it right on top of my, here's my profile, and there's my pipe network. And again, the beauty of this is all this is coming from Infoworks. So it's not much in terms of what I've needed in terms of going out and getting an actual survey, going on USGS maps and grabbing all the shape files, aerial photography, topo data. I mean, I've done this in seconds. So Infoworks gets you to that point really quick. So from that, here's my existing ground. And then right here, you can see that this is actually a profile that's been brought in, which is fine. So I'm just going to hit escape. And then what I want to be able to do now is from that profile, that design profile that's been brought in, I want to create a corridor. So I'm going to create a corridor. And from that corridor, I'm going to use this boulevard assembly. I'm going to target this existing ground surface. And then from that, we have that alignment profile. And then I'm going to select OK. And then from that, everyone's used Civil 3D. So we're going to set all targets. We already have the existing ground. I can target some widths and some line slopes. We won't worry about that right now. I'll just select OK. and I'll rebuild the corridor. So from the corridor being built, which takes a couple seconds, now when I look on my screen, so something's not being displayed. Now, typically when something's not being displayed, it's because it's either cut off or it's not being displayed in the style. So I can see right there that my C-roll corridor, even though I don't see it, I don't get frantic, I just cut it on. So you just cut on that corridor, and if I pick on it, here's my corridor. I'll right click and go to Object Viewer. From Object Viewer, there's my corridor. So if I pick on it, I zoom in. So I'm not going to get too technical, but there's my corridor. And I'm just going to select Southwest Isometric so we can get a better view. And I'm being very cognizant of time. So hoping that I hit on all the points that we talked about in that initial slide. But we're going to select the Southwest Isometric, and then we're just going to zoom in here to kind of get a feel for what's going on. Okay, so there's my corridor, and I didn't give it regions and things like that, but we could. So, and then I'm just going to close that. And one of the reasons I selected to create this corridor with this code set style is because that magenta color is really straining on the eyes. So I made it a really light color so you guys wouldn't complain. Okay, so moving on here. From that, from this corridor, if we pick on it, we can say corridor surfaces. So in order to do this, to address this corridor surface, we're going to select top. We're going to add the top, and then we're going to create another corridor surface, add as a break line. We won't worry about the overhang, but we need to do a datum, because anytime we want to do cross sections, we need to do a datum. So from the boundaries, I'm going to right click, corridor extents, and corridor extents, select OK, rebuild the corridor. And from that corridor, we created two surfaces. What's that surface? Borders and contours. Okay, from this surface, borders and contours. And then we're going to select OK. And then from that, when I zoom in, we can see if we go to our Object Viewer in terms of the surface, and it didn't work on the one boundary, but you clearly can see it's built a surface based upon that data. And there's some cleanup stuff that I have to do, but clearly to be able to get from concept quickly to design, working with the AEC collection and connected workflows with Civil 3D is the way to go. So the only other thing that I did was what we wanted to be able to do is create some cross sections, but because of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my other design drawing that I had because of time, and show you that yes, I have done this before, but to get an idea in terms of using 12 to 13 different products in terms of what you want to do. So there's my, and I actually created a model from that, a surface from that, and then cross sections from that. So it's just the beauty of working with Civil 3D and these other tools. So if I jump back, one of the other things that I want to quickly show is this infrastructure parts editor. So you do have access to that with the AEC collection also. So with the parts editor, you can create your own parts. You can create the parts in Inventor or Plan 3D in terms of that data. So if I just go in here to my generic catalog, just to show you quickly the part family, it shows me all the different structures. So the ones from Infoworks, I can pull straight in here to my parts editor, push those straight into Civil 3D. Okay, so just quickly get out of that. And if I jump back, and we're going to zoom back up, to my initial slide. So Civil 3D, vehicle tracking with swept path analysis, Infoworks, Revit, SketchUp, 3ds Max, you can pull in. Also Esri with shape files, Map 3D with parcel, alignment, data, river analysis, HEC-RAS, HydroFlow, and then also MicroStation, Parts Editor, Plan 3D, and Inventor. So before we leave, just as an example, we may get files from GIS. From those files, I mean, we can bring in soils, we can bring in terrain. So I can just drag and drop the shape file for my streets, and it brings in my streets. Pretty straightforward. Well, supposedly. Let's go back. I brought in the wrong streets. So I'm just going to come back out. Buildings. Let me zoom in on that. It's brought in my streets. So it's brought in the yellow streets. And I'm just going to go, and I'm going to be 2 to 3 more minutes. And then we're going to try to take questions if we can. So my streets, and then I can also bring in zoning. So I'm just going to pick on this, go right back from my GIS, and I'm going to bring in zoning. So floodplain maps, things like that, different zoning in any area that you might be able to pull from Esri or geo databases, you can pull right into Civil 3D. And then if I type in map workspace to make it simple. So if I go and select map workspace and cut that on, you can see that it's brought in that data. And if you look at data, you can bring in these file formats in terms of data also with Civil 3D. So again, connected workflows. Everything that you should be able to do in a civil infrastructure project with the AC collection is viable and doable. It's just a matter of using different workflows and connected workflows to get to that point. So whether it's ArcGIS, whether it's ArcSDE, Shapefile, SDE, SQLite, Esri, raster images, it all can be done from the premise of Civil 3D. Okay, so let's jump back. And if Amy, if you're online,
I am.
Maybe we can open it up to some questions. I don't know, maybe no one's left on the webcast.
There are still people here. And we had a question. Can you change the stationing numbers to the station number you want in Infoworks?
Not yet in Infoworks.
Okay.
You can move around the alignment geometry, and soon to come in reference to changing the stationing to start from a station other than 0.
All right, that is all of the questions that we have right now. If anyone else has questions, please type those in. If not, you can reach out to us or your sales rep following the webinar, and we will be happy to address any questions you have from today's presentation. Do you have anything else to add, Ken?
So one of the things I want to be able to do is kind of address things that you all do on a day-to-day basis. So I don't want to create the webcast, even though I can, but if you come and you put in a submittal for dams or drainage basins or hydrology or residential, whatever you want to be able to see, I just want to be able to address things that you guys run into. Because I can talk about a surface all day, but clearly real world scenarios require much more than that. But if you guys have suggestions for different webcasts, I will be more than happy to share, expose all the things that you can do within the AC collection that would make you more efficient, more productive, and last but not least, get a return on your investment of the software.
That is great. And we actually have one other question come in, or actually two now. Are there staggered labels for pipes?
Yes.
All right.
There's a new 18.2 update that you go to the accounts manage and update that, and you will be able to get those labels. And shoot me an email if you can't find it.
All right. And is there connectivity between pipe networks in Civil 3D and piping and Plant 3D?
Soon to come. So right now in 2018, no, but soon to come. So clearly, being able to utilize the parts editor with Plant 3D, there's some interoperability that's there. It's going to be more of, it's soon to come.